Hey everyone, ready for some ancient history? Today we're doing a deep dive into ancient texts and biblical scholarship.
Ooh, yeah, that sounds fun.
Where like history and faith and archaeology all kind of come together.
I love it.
And our guide for this is an interview that Joe Rogan did with biblical scholar Wesley Huff.
Oh, interesting.
This was from the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, episode 2252.
Okay.
And have you ever wondered how writings that are literally thousands of years old,
Oh, for sure.
how they still kind of shape the world today?
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
It's truly fascinating how these ancient voices just continue to echo through time.
Right.
And they influence our beliefs and laws and even our understanding of the universe.
Right. What's really interesting about this particular interview is that it all kind of started with a little bit of controversy.
Oh, really?
Joe Rogan actually discovered Wesley Huff through this debate
Okay.
that Huff had with another commentator, Billy Carson, about the accuracy of some of Carson's claims about the Bible.
Oh, interesting.
And it seems like that debate sparked a much broader conversation about the importance of serious biblical scholarship.
Yeah.
And Huff, with his knowledge of ancient languages and historical context, he really brought a different perspective
Yeah, he really did.
to the table.
And it caught Rogan's attention.
Yeah, for sure.
From there, we get introduced to Wesley Huff.
Yeah.
And he's a scholar with a really, truly unique background.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
So, one of the things that really struck me about Huff's story was just that he was raised in a multi-faith household.
Wow.
Exposed to just a diverse range of worldviews from a young age.
Yeah.
He actually had the Bhagavad Gita,
Wow.
the Book of Mormon,
Wow.
and the Quran on his bookshelf alongside the Bible.
Okay, so a well-rounded religious education.
It really was.
That's amazing.
But that's not all.
Okay.
So at just 12 years old,
Okay.
Huff was diagnosed with a neurological condition that left him paralyzed from the waist down.
Wow. So young.
It was a life-altering experience
Yeah.
that ultimately fueled his passion for truth, and it ignited a lifelong quest to understand the Bible and its place in history.
Wow.
And he actually made a miraculous recovery,
Oh, wow.
which just deepened his conviction even further.
That's an incredible story.
It is.
It really is. It makes you wonder
Yeah.
how experiences like that
Right.
shape a person's perspective,
Totally.
especially on something
Yeah.
as complex as biblical interpretation.
Absolutely. It adds just a layer of personal depth to his scholarship.
Right.
Speaking of which,
Okay.
let's talk about one of the most significant discoveries in biblical archaeology,
Okay.
the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them.
You've probably heard of them, but do you really know why they're so important?
I mean, I know they're old, but how old are we talking?
We're talking really old.
Okay.
They're the oldest known copies of the Old Testament,
Wow.
and they push back our understanding by a staggering 1,000 years.
Oh, my.
Just imagine the impact that has on our understanding of biblical history.
Yeah, that's incredible. 1,000 years.
1,000 years.
Wow. It's amazing to think that those fragile pieces of history have survived for so long. I've always just kind of pictured those traditional scrolls.
Right.
But what materials were they actually using back then?
Well, that's part of what makes them so fascinating, is they were found on a variety of materials.
Okay.
Animal skins, papyrus,
Oh, okay.
and even copper,
Copper.
which is pretty unusual.
That is unusual.
And to make things even more challenging, many of them are fragmented,
Oh, no.
like a giant jigsaw puzzle scattered across the desert.
Oh, gosh. That must have made it really difficult to put them together.
It was a monumental task,
Yeah.
requiring incredible patience and expertise.
Yeah.
And the discoveries they've made have been astonishing.
Okay.
So, for instance, one scroll,
Okay.
the Great Isaiah Scroll,
Mm-hmm.
is nearly identical
Wow.
to the versions we know today.
Wow. So they got it right the first time,
Pretty much.
even though it's over 2,000 years old.
I know, right?
That's incredible.
It seems to suggest that the transmission of the text over the centuries was incredibly accurate.
Yeah.
But I think you're remembering something
Okay.
about a treasure map found among the scrolls.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true?
Is that real?
You're thinking of the Copper Scroll,
No.
which literally describes the locations of hidden treasures,
What?
65 tons of gold,
No way.
and 26 tons of silver.
Oh, my goodness.
It reads like something straight out of an Indiana Jones movie.
Wow. Now, that's a fascinating piece of history.
Right.
It's almost like a real-life treasure hunt,
It is.
just waiting to be solved.
Yeah.
But the Dead Sea Scrolls are just one window into the ancient world.
Mm-hmm.
What about like those ancient languages like Sumerian?
Oh, yeah.
It seems so shrouded in mystery.
Sumerian is particularly challenging because it's what we call a language isolate.
Okay.
Meaning that it has no known linguistic relatives.
Oh, wow.
Imagine trying to decipher a language with no Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
No connections to any other language we know.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly difficult.
It is.
I mean, where would you even begin?
It's so tough that even Wesley Huff admitted that he tried to learn Sumerian and failed.
Wow.
It just highlights the immense difficulty of the task.
Yeah.
And the incredible dedication required to translate these ancient writings accurately.
So we're talking about languages that are just completely different.
Yes.
From anything that we know today.
Exactly. And add another layer of complexity.
Okay.
We don't even know how these ancient languages sounded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have educated guesses based on written symbols.
Right.
But we might be hearing those words completely differently in our heads than they were originally spoken.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
It is.
It really makes you appreciate the work of these biblical scholars and the challenges that they face.
Yeah, it's like they're piecing together a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah.
And faded colors.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And that's where the field of textual criticism comes in.
Okay.
Think of it like forensics for the Bible.
Uh-huh.
So scholars analyze manuscripts for tiny clues.
Okay.
Like spelling errors, changes in wording.
Okay.
Even like accidental omissions, to trace how the text evolved over time.
Oh, so it's not just about finding the original text.
Right.
It's about understanding how like beliefs and interpretations shifted over time.
Exactly.
That changes the game completely.
We're not just looking at a static document, but like a living, breathing text that has been shaped by history and human interpretation.
Wow, that's cool.
One of Huff's anecdotes really illustrates this point.
Okay.
He talks about a scribe who completely scrambled Jesus's genealogy.
Oh my goodness.
Because he didn't know how to read.
Wow, so even the most sacred texts were subject to human error.
It really humanizes the whole process.
It really does.
And it seems like technology is playing an increasingly important role in this field as well.
Oh, for sure.
New techniques, like the coherence-based genealogical method, use computer models to analyze patterns in manuscripts and uncover relationships between different versions.
That's incredible.
It's revolutionizing how we understand the transmission and evolution of biblical texts.
It's incredible how technology is helping us unlock all these. Let's talk about papyrus P52.
Correct.
What's so special about this tiny fragment?
P52 is believed to be the oldest known New Testament fragment.
Wow.
And it contains a portion of the Gospel of John.
Oh, okay.
What's significant is that it pushes the dating of this gospel back, potentially even into the lifetime of eyewitnesses.
Wow.
So we could be looking at a firsthand account of Jesus' life and teachings.
That's amazing.
And get this, Wesley Huff, being the meticulous scholar he is, actually reconstructed the entire page that P52 belonged to based on like manuscript conventions of the time.
Wow, that's incredible.
Talk about attention to detail.
Wow, it's amazing how like a tiny fragment can unlock so much information.
It really is.
But these Christian texts didn't just appear out of thin air.
Right.
How do they compare to other ancient origin stories from different cultures?
That's a key question.
Yeah.
And one that often leads to fascinating insights.
Okay.
So take the biblical flood narrative, for example, with Noah's Ark.
Right.
There are striking similarities to the Epic of Gilgamesh flood story from ancient Mesopotamia.
Interesting.
Where a character named Utnapishtim builds a giant boat to save humanity and animals.
So are we saying that like the Bible borrowed the story from the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Not necessarily. So both stories feature a massive boat built to weather a catastrophic flood, followed by a sacrifice afterwards.
Right.
But the differences are just as important.
Okay.
The length and significance of the flood story within each narrative suggests a shared cultural memory of a catastrophic event rather than direct borrowing.
So it's like two different cultures interpreting and retelling a shared memory of a significant event.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a fascinating example of how ancient stories can provide insights into cultural exchanges and shared human experiences.
Right.
Another intriguing comparison is between the Babylonian creation myth, Enuma Elish, and the Genesis account of creation.
Okay, I'm familiar with the Genesis story.
Right.
But how does the Babylonian version differ?
So the Enuma Elish revolves around themes of chaos and order.
Okay.
It describes a cosmic battle between gods, and humanity is created almost as an afterthought.
Okay.
Whereas the Genesis account, God creates a good and purposeful world, and humans are made in his image.
Yeah, so a very different worldview.
Precisely.
Right. Yeah.
So these contrasting creation stories reveal a lot about the values and worldview of these ancient cultures.
Yeah.
The Genesis account is a radical departure from the prevailing ancient beliefs, emphasizing the inherent goodness of creation and the special place of humanity within it.
These comparisons are fascinating.
They are.
It makes you wonder how these different narratives shaped like the beliefs and worldviews of ancient people.
Absolutely.
But speaking of creation, how do we reconcile these ancient origin stories with modern scientific discoveries?
That's right.
Especially around evolution and human origins.
That's a question that continues to spark debate and discussion.
Oh, for sure.
Wesley Huff, for example, supports intelligent design, acknowledging the complexity of life and questioning whether current evolutionary explanations fully account for it.
It's definitely a complex issue with passionate voices on all sides.
Absolutely.
And Huff isn't alone in questioning some aspects of neo-Darwinian evolution.
Right.
There are other scientists like biologist Jonathan McClatchy, who are also critiquing certain aspects of the theory, suggesting there are alternative perspectives within the scientific community.
And then there's the discovery of Homo nalei, an extinct hominin species, with evidence of intentional burial practices.
What?
Which raises fascinating questions about the development of human consciousness and spirituality.
Wow, that's incredible.
Even in our distant ancestors.
So are we talking about like a conflict between science and faith? Or is there room for nuance?
I think it's more nuanced than a simple conflict. It's a conversation that requires open-mindedness, a willingness to engage with different perspectives, and a recognition that we're still unraveling the mysteries of human origins. But the conversation takes on a whole new level of complexity when we consider the historicity of Jesus and the claims about his resurrection. Right.
That's definitely a topic that generates a lot of discussion.
It does.
Even outside of religious circles.
For sure.
So what does like the historical evidence tell us about Jesus?
Even skeptical scholars acknowledge the historical evidence for Jesus's existence and crucifixion. That core narrative is widely accepted. The challenge lies in fact-checking the resurrection in an ancient context.
It's not like we can pull up security camera footage from 2,000 years ago. So how do historians even approach a claim like that?
It requires a careful examination of the available evidence. An understanding of the limitations of ancient sources. And considering cultural biases. We can't apply modern standards of evidence to events that occur in a vastly different time and place.
That makes sense.
But what about the claim that hundreds of people witnessed the resurrected Jesus? Wouldn't that be difficult to fabricate in a society where such a claim could be easily refuted? I mean, some might argue that Jesus could have simply fainted on the cross.
And not actually died.
But wouldn't the Romans, known for their brutality and efficiency in crucifixions, have been able to tell the difference?
Exactly. The historical consensus is that Roman crucifixion was a very effective method of execution. Plus, there's this curious lack of historical accounts. Explicitly denying the resurrection in the early centuries. Wouldn't you expect to find at least some evidence of pushback? If such an extraordinary claim was completely unfounded?
That's a good point.
So it seems like the claim, even if controversial, was at least taken seriously by people at the time.
So it was like a known thing.
Yeah, for sure. Historians use the concept of verisimilitude to analyze historical claims, looking for clues that enhance the likelihood of a claim's truthfulness. So when we apply that concept to the Gospels, we find some compelling evidence.
Oh, like what? Give me an example. Well, for instance, the geographical details in the Gospels are remarkably accurate. There's accurate knowledge of local flora, like the mention of Zacchaeus climbing a sycamore tree, a species common in that region.
Interesting.
So these details woven into the narrative just add layers of credibility.
It's like those little details that bring the story to life and make it feel more grounded in reality.
Exactly.
And when you compare this to the inaccuracies found in later non-canonical gospels, the difference in historical grounding becomes even more apparent.
Yeah, it's like comparing a first-hand account to a story that's been passed down through generations with details changing and embellishments added along the way.
Exactly.
It suggests that the authors of the Gospels were closer to the events they described, and they paid attention to the details that matter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But ultimately, the search for truth, especially regarding events as significant as the resurrection, requires a nuanced approach. Considering the evidence, the context, and multiple perspectives.
Right, so multiple perspectives are important.
Very important.
Yeah, it seems like we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic.
It's a deep one.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's important to remember that exploring these ancient texts is a journey.
Okay.
Not a destination.
Okay.
We may not have all the answers.
Right.
But the act of questioning, seeking understanding, and engaging with these complex ideas is what enriches our perspective and deepens our appreciation of history and the human condition.
That's a great way to put it. I love that.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most important discoveries come from like the questions we ask.
Right.
Not the answers that we find.
For sure.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
From the Dead Sea Scrolls to the challenges of interpreting ancient languages.
Absolutely.
But there's just so much more to explore.
There is.
And so much more to uncover.
Yes.
So we'll be back soon to continue our exploration.
Sounds great.
Of ancient texts and biblical scholarship.
Can't wait.
And until then, keep those minds curious.
Keep them curious.
And those questions coming.
That's right. So picking up where we left off, it's incredible how studying ancient texts allows us to like step into the shoes of those who lived centuries ago.
Right.
We're not just reading words on a page.
Right.
We're like glimpsing into their world, their beliefs, and their struggles to make sense of life's big questions.
It's like those texts are like a time machine, transporting us back to ancient civilizations.
I love that.
And allowing us to witness history firsthand.
Yeah, and it makes you realize that even though like times have changed, some fundamental human questions remain the same.
Yeah, like what are we doing here?
Exactly.
What's the point?
Yeah.
What happens after this?
For example, the question of Jesus' divinity and the meaning of his resurrection.
Right.
These are central to Christian faith.
Yeah.
But even if we set aside the theological implications for a moment,
there's
no denying the historical impact of Jesus and his followers.
It is pretty amazing to think that Christianity went from a small, often persecuted group to the dominant religion of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
In just a few centuries.
Yeah.
That kind of cultural transformation is really hard to grasp.
It speaks volumes about the power of ideas and like the human need for meaning and purpose. And the role of those early Christian texts like the Gospels in shaping that transformation is undeniable.
So those writings, even though they were products of their time, still resonate with billions of people today.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about these stories and teachings that have endured for so long?
Yeah, what makes them so universally appealing?
Yeah, why do they still matter?
Perhaps it's the message of hope, forgiveness, and love that transcends cultural boundaries. Maybe it's the invitation to connect with something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
To find meaning in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain.
Yeah. Those are definitely questions worth pondering.
Yeah.
But, you know, this deep dive into ancient texts also brings up another important question for me.
Okay.
Like, how do we even approach truth?
Right.
In an age of information overload?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We're bombarded with so much information.
Way to go.
From all sides.
Yeah.
Much of it contradictory or unreliable.
That's the million-dollar question in today's world, isn't it?
It really is.
It's so easy to feel overwhelmed. You know, to retreat into echo chambers where we only hear voices that confirm our existing beliefs.
Right.
Or to just give up on the pursuit of truth altogether.
Yeah, just throw your hands up and say, forget about it.
Yeah. It's almost as if we've come full circle back to a time when knowledge was controlled by a select few. Except now it's algorithms and social media platforms dictating what we see and believe.
It's really scary when you put it that way.
It is a little bit unsettling.
So are you saying that those skills we've been talking about, like critical thinking, questioning assumptions, evaluating evidence, are more important than ever?
Precisely. We need to apply those same principles of textual criticism, the skills of discernment and analysis that scholars use to understand ancient texts. We need to apply that to the information we encounter every day.
So it's not just about analyzing those ancient scrolls. It's about like navigating the modern world with a discerning eye and a critical mind.
Exactly.
Okay. We need to be discerning readers, skeptical listeners, and active seekers of truth.
I like that.
And that means being willing to engage with different perspectives.
Challenge our own biases. And to recognize that even our most cherished beliefs can be refined. Or even overturned in the face of new evidence.
So it's about embracing the journey of understanding. Recognizing that like the quest for truth is ongoing.
Absolutely.
Rather than like clinging to the comfort of certainty.
That's right.
A good point.
And that's where the study of ancient texts, with all its complexities and challenges, can be so valuable. It reminds us that truth is often elusive, multifaceted, and it demands a willingness to grapple with ambiguity and uncertainty.
That reminds you of that famous quote often attributed to Socrates. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing.
Exactly. Humility is key in the pursuit of knowledge.
I like that.
We have to be willing to admit what we don't know. Question what we think we know. And to be open to the possibility of being wrong.
That's a tough one for a lot of people.
I know. It is.
Especially in a world that often rewards like unwavering confidence and strong opinions.
But it's a challenge, but a worthwhile one. If we aren't willing to question our beliefs, to face uncomfortable truths, how can we ever truly grow and evolve?
I love that. It's like we're on this constant quest, following like a trail of breadcrumbs, trying to piece together the puzzle of our own existence.
And those breadcrumbs can be found in the most unexpected places.
Where?
From ancient scrolls hidden in caves to the latest scientific discoveries. From the wisdom of ancient philosophers to those everyday experiences that challenge our assumptions and broaden our understanding.
So it's like this constant exploration and discovery, both within and outside of ourselves.
And it's a journey that calls for both intellectual rigor and a willingness to step into the unknown, to move beyond our comfort zone, and allow ourselves to be transformed by what we find.
So pushing those boundaries.
But speaking of journeys, let's circle back to Wesley Huff and his unique perspective. So he's a scholar who deeply understands ancient texts and the complexities of biblical scholarship. But he also approaches these topics from a place of faith.
It's like he's bridging the gap between like the academic world and the lived experience of faith.
Exactly.
Because there can be a real disconnect there.
There can be. And his willingness to engage in open debate, like his encounter with Billy Carson, demonstrates his commitment to intellectual honesty and his courage to challenge ideas that he believes are inaccurate. It's a powerful reminder that faith shouldn't be a shield against critical thinking, but rather a lens through which we can view the world with greater clarity and compassion.
That's a really good point.
And that's a vital message, especially in a world that often feels so divided.
So maybe the key to bridging those divides lies not in clinging to like rigid dogma or dismissing faith entirely, but in embracing that kind of nuanced, open-minded approach that Huff exemplifies.
I think you're onto something there. It's about recognizing that we all have something to learn from one another, whether we're scholars, scientists, theologians, or just curious individuals trying to make sense of the world around us.
So it's that open-minded curiosity that can really help us connect.
That's right.
And who knows, maybe in the process of engaging in those dialogues, challenging our assumptions and confronting uncomfortable truths, we'll discover something new about ourselves.
Absolutely.
But shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the challenges of interpreting ancient texts. So we've touched on the complexities of language and historical context, but there's another layer to this puzzle that I think is worth exploring.
What's that?
Symbolism and allegory.
Ah, yes.
So ancient texts, especially those with religious or spiritual significance, are often rich in symbolism and allegory.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the literal words on the page.
Right.
It's about like deciphering the deeper meanings.
Yes.
And messages embedded within the narrative.
Like parables.
Right.
Stories that use everyday situations and relatable characters
Yeah.
to convey profound moral or spiritual truths.
Exactly. And the Bible's full of those.
The Bible is full of parables, from the Good Samaritan to the prodigal son.
Right. And each of those parables offers these layers of meaning that can be unpacked and explored on multiple levels.
It's like those stories are operating on multiple levels simultaneously, inviting us to engage with them both intellectually and emotionally.
And it's not just the Bible. Ancient myths and legends from around the world are also full of symbolism and allegory.
Absolutely.
Like the Greek myths.
Yes.
With their gods and goddesses and monsters and heroes.
Yes, those are so fascinating.
I've always found those stories fascinating.
Me too.
But I sometimes struggle to understand what they're really about.
So those characters and narratives often represent deeper psychological or archetypal truths.
Okay.
Think of it as ancient cultures using stories to explore the human condition, our fears, our aspirations, and our search for meaning in the face of the unknown.
So it's like those myths were tapping into something universal.
Yes.
Something about human nature that transcends time and culture.
Exactly. That's why these stories continue to resonate with us today, even if we no longer believe in the literal existence of Zeus or Hera.
Right. We don't think that they were actually real people.
Exactly. But they speak to something deeper within us. Something about our shared human experience.
It's amazing how those ancient stories continue to hold such power and relevance.
It is amazing.
But deciphering those symbolic languages, those layers of meaning hidden beneath the surface, sounds like a real challenge.
It is a challenge, but a rewarding one.
Okay.
It's like we're code breakers trying to unlock the secrets of an ancient cipher.
I like that.
But there's no single key that will unlock every door.
So how do we even approach this task of interpreting these symbolic layers without getting lost in speculation?
So it requires a combination of knowledge, intuition, and a willingness to embrace multiple perspectives. We need to consider the historical context, the cultural beliefs and practices of the time, the literary conventions and symbolic languages that were prevalent, and we have to be open to the possibility that there might be multiple valid interpretations, that different readers may find different meanings within the same text.
So it's not about finding the right answer.
Right.
It's about engaging with the text on a deeper level and allowing its meaning to unfold in its own time.
Exactly. It's like appreciating a complex tapestry.
Okay.
So the threads of meaning are interwoven to create an intricate design. And each viewer might see something different depending on their own perspective and experiences.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
It takes the pressure off of finding the correct interpretation. And invites us to approach these texts with a sense of curiosity and wonder.
Yes, precisely.
Okay, so that open-mindedness and wondering.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what makes them so endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
Ancient texts aren't static artifacts.
Right.
They're living documents that continue to speak to us in new and unexpected ways, as long as we're willing to listen.
Okay, so being receptive to the message.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Speaking of listening, I'm curious about your perspective on the relationship between ancient texts and modern spirituality.
Okay.
So we live in a world where a lot of people are seeking meaning and purpose outside of traditional religious structures.
Yeah, it's very common these days.
Do you think ancient texts still have something to offer those?
Yeah.
Exploring a more personalized or eclectic approach to spirituality?
It's a great question, and I think the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay.
So ancient texts, despite their historical and cultural context, often grapple with these universal themes that resonate with people from all walks of life.
I agree.
The search for meaning, the struggle with good and evil, the power of love and forgiveness, the yearning for connection and transcendence.
Yes.
These are all timeless themes explored in ancient texts from all over the world.
It's like those texts are speaking to the core of the human experience.
Right, something we can all relate to.
Yes.
Regardless of our beliefs or backgrounds.
Exactly.
So even if someone doesn't subscribe to the specific religious beliefs or practices associated with a particular text, they can still find wisdom, inspiration, and guidance within its pages.
Absolutely.
So it's not about like adopting a particular belief system.
Right.
It's about like extracting those universal truths and applying them to our own lives.
Exactly. It's like using those texts as a map, not a destination.
Okay.
They can point us in a direction, but it's up to us to choose our path.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
And it makes those texts so much more accessible and relevant to modern seekers.
Yeah, because they're not seen as like these rigid dictates.
Right. They're more like tools that we can use to craft our own understanding of spirituality.
It's about like reclaiming our own agency.
Yes.
Our own authority.
Yes.
To define what spirituality means to us.
That's right.
It's not about some outside force telling you what to believe.
Exactly.
You get to decide.
That's right.
Okay, so it's about recognizing that like the quest for meaning and purpose isn't a one-size-fits-all endeavor.
Right. We each have our own unique path to follow.
Yeah.
Our own journey of discovery and transformation.
And these ancient texts, with all their wisdom and wonder, can be these valuable companions.
Absolutely.
Along that journey.
They can challenge us, inspire us, comfort us, and guide us as we navigate the complexities of life.
Yeah.
And seek to make sense of our place in the cosmos.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to the question of historical accuracy in these ancient texts, things can get a little bit more complicated.
Right, because we've already talked about like how to interpret these writings.
Right.
But how do we even determine what's fact and what's fiction?
That's right. What's based on actual historical events.
Yeah.
And what's been embellished or even completely fabricated for literary or theological purposes.
That's the million-dollar question.
It is. And unfortunately, there's no simple answer.
Okay.
It's a complex process that requires careful examination of the evidence, an understanding of the historical context, and a willingness to acknowledge the limitations of our sources.
So it's like being a detective, piecing together clues from like fragments of evidence, trying to reconstruct like a complete picture of the past.
And we have to be careful not to jump to conclusions.
Right.
And not to impose our modern worldview onto ancient texts.
It's so easy to dismiss something as myth or legend.
I know.
Just because it doesn't fit our current understanding of the world.
Exactly. But we have to remember that ancient cultures had different ways of understanding the world, different ways of explaining the unexplainable.
Like how, so
think about ancient accounts of natural disasters, like earthquakes or floods.
Okay.
They might describe these events as the actions of angry gods.
But that doesn't mean those events didn't actually happen.
Exactly.
It's just like a different way of interpreting and explaining natural phenomena.
Precisely. So when we approach these ancient texts, we need to be sensitive to those cultural differences, to those alternative ways of understanding the world.
So we need to approach them with a sense of humility, recognizing that our own perspective is limited by our own time and culture.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean we have to accept everything we read at face value.
Right.
We can still apply critical thinking, evaluate the evidence, and look for corroboration from other sources.
So it's about finding a balance, a way to like respect the integrity of the text while also recognizing that it might be filtered through like the biases and beliefs of the author and the culture in which it was written.
And it's also important to remember that ancient texts weren't always intended to be literal historical accounts.
Right, they were telling stories.
Exactly. Sometimes they're meant to teach moral lessons, to convey spiritual truths, to inspire or entertain.
Right.
Think about those parables we discussed earlier.
Right.
They're not historical accounts.
Right.
But they still convey profound truths about human nature and the human condition.
Okay.
So when we're reading these texts, we need to consider the author's intent.
Right.
Like, what were they trying to communicate?
Right.
What purpose did the text serve within its cultural context?
So what were they trying to say?
Exactly. It's like trying to understand a work of art.
Okay.
We can't just analyze the brushstrokes or the composition.
Right.
We have to consider the artist's vision, their message. their emotional intent.
So it's about meeting the text on its own terms.
Yeah.
Recognizing its complexity and its potential for multiple meaning.
Exactly. And it's about embracing the mystery, unknown, the possibility that we may never fully understand the intentions or the beliefs of those who came before us.
We can try, but we'll never really know for sure.
That's right. Okay.
But let's move on to one of the most controversial and intriguing aspects of ancient texts.
What's that?
The seemingly supernatural or miraculous events.
Right, those are always fun.
Yeah.
From parting seas to resurrections.
Yeah.
These stories have captivated readers for centuries.
They have.
But how do we reconcile them with our modern scientific understanding of the world?
That's a question that has puzzled theologians, philosophers, and scientists for a long time.
Yeah, it's a big question.
It's a big one.
Okay.
It's easy to just dismiss these accounts as mere superstition or folklore.
But they've had such a profound impact on human history and culture.
They really have.
And these stories, whether we believe them literally or not, I think they speak to our deepest longings and fears, our hopes and anxieties about life, death, and the nature of reality.
Right.
They reflect our need to make sense of the unexplainable, to find meaning and purpose in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable.
So they offer a sense of order in chaos.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they tap into that sense of wonder and awe that we all experience when we confront the mysteries of the universe.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like Carl Sagan said, somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known.
I love that quote.
Yeah, we shouldn't be afraid to embrace the mystery.
Right.
To acknowledge that there might be more to the universe than we can currently measure or explain.
But that doesn't mean we have to abandon reason or critical thinking, right?
Of course not. We can still approach these accounts with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right.
We can look for natural explanations and evaluate the evidence.
So it's about finding that balance, a way to hold on to our sense of wonder and awe.
Yes.
While also remaining grounded in reality.
Exactly.
So not going too far in either direction.
Right. So, and it's about recognizing that even if we don't have all the answers, the act of questioning, of seeking understanding, is itself a valuable pursuit.
Okay, so the journey is more important than a destination.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Speaking of seeking understanding, let's shift gears and talk about the impact of these ancient texts on modern society.
Okay.
So we live in an increasingly secular world.
We do.
Where traditional religious beliefs are often questioned or even rejected.
It's very common these days.
Right. Yet these ancient texts continue to influence our laws.
It's true.
Our morals, art, and literature.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
Like these writings, even though they're products of ancient cultures, they still shape our values, our beliefs, and our understanding of the world today.
And their influence is so deeply embedded in our culture that we often don't even realize it's there.
Yeah, it's just there.
Take the Ten Commandments, for example.
Okay.
They're foundational to many legal systems and moral codes.
Yeah.
Even in societies that are no longer predominantly Christian.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And principles like justice, mercy, and compassion, which are found in ancient texts from various traditions, continue to inspire social movements and humanitarian efforts around the world.
That's amazing.
It's like those texts offer a blueprint for a more just and compassionate society. A vision of a world where people are treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their beliefs or background.
And their influence extends beyond law and morality, too.
Oh, for sure.
Think about, like, how many novels, films, paintings, musical compositions have been inspired by, like, the Bible, the Greek myths, other ancient writings.
They continue to resonate with us today.
They do.
Speaking to our deepest longings and fears, our hopes and anxieties about life, death, and the nature of reality.
They're like this never-ending well of inspiration. Continually nourishing and enriching our cultural landscape.
And even in the realm of science and technology, ancient texts can offer unexpected insights and perspectives.
Oh, wow.
Think about the field of biomimicry, for example.
Okay, remind me what that is.
That's where scientists and engineers look to nature for inspiration.
Okay.
Like designing airplane wings based on the structure of bird wings.
Right, they're mimicking nature.
Right, biomimicry.
And many of the principles of biomimicry
yeah.
are echoed in ancient texts.
Which often emphasize the interconnectedness of all living things.
Right.
And the wisdom inherent in the natural world.
So it's like those texts are reminding us that we're not separate from nature.
Right.
But a part of it.
Exactly.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially in a world facing environmental degradation and climate change.
Yeah.
Maybe by reconnecting with the wisdom of those ancient texts.
Right.
By rediscovering our place.
Yeah.
Within like the web of life.
Right.
Yeah.
We can find a more sustainable and harmonious way to live on this planet.
Right. So it's not just about looking back, it's about looking forward too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But moving on to a different aspect.
Okay.
Let's discuss this search for hidden meanings or like esoteric knowledge in ancient texts.
Okay, now we're getting into the realm of mystery and intrigue.
Right.
I've always been fascinated by the idea that there might be like secret teachings or codes embedded within these ancient writings.
Right. And this is a realm that has captivated seekers and scholars for centuries.
Right.
The idea that there are secret teachings or codes embedded within these writings has inspired countless theories and interpretations.
Like think about the Kabbalah, for example.
Yes.
A mystical tradition within Judaism that aims to uncover hidden meanings in the Hebrew Bible.
Exactly.
Right.
And there are similar traditions in other religions and spiritual paths.
Right.
All seeking to unlock the secrets of the cosmos
through
the study and interpretation of ancient texts.
It's like those texts are like a treasure map.
Yeah.
Leading to this hidden realm of knowledge and wisdom.
It's exciting, isn't it?
It sounds so cool.
Yeah.
But are there dangers in like searching for those hidden meanings?
I mean, it's important to approach those esoteric interpretations with caution.
Okay.
It's so easy to get caught up in speculation.
Right.
To project our own beliefs and desires onto the text without a solid understanding of its historical and cultural context.
So we need to be careful not to like twist the text to fit our own preconceived notions.
Precisely. And we also need to be aware of the potential for misinterpretations.
Okay.
For distorting the original message to fit our own agendas or beliefs.
Yeah, so it's almost like confirmation bias in a way.
Yeah.
Where you're looking for the thing that supports what you already believe.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like trying to interpret a dream without understanding the dreamer's personal symbols and associations.
Right.
We might think we know what it means, but our interpretation could be completely off.
Yeah, so when it comes to these esoteric interpretations, it's really crucial to have a strong foundation in like the historical and cultural context of the text, along with like a healthy dose of critical thinking and discernment.
Absolutely. We need to be grounded in reality, not just letting our imaginations run wild.
Not just making stuff up.
That's right. But it's also important to recognize that search for hidden meanings can be a deeply personal journey. Cool. What resonates with one person might not resonate with another.
Okay.
What seems profound to one reader might seem like gibberish to another.
Yeah. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's about finding our own connection to the text.
Right.
Our own way of unlocking its secrets.
And maybe that's part of the mystery.
Maybe so.
Right.
And in the end, the most profound insights might come not from like decoding secret messages, but from allowing the text to speak to us on a deeper, more intuitive level.
Okay, so just being open to the message.
That's right.
Whatever it might be.
That's right.
Okay, I like that.
It's about opening ourselves up to the wisdom that's already there, waiting to be discovered.
Well, I think we've covered like a vast and fascinating landscape.
We have.
In this deep dive.
We've journeyed through ancient languages, unearthed hidden treasures, debated historical claims.
Yeah, we even peered into the future a little bit.
He did.
So as you continue your own explorations, just remember to keep those minds curious.
Yes.
Those questions coming.
Keep asking those questions.
And those hearts open to the wisdom and wonder that these ancient texts have to offer.
That's beautiful.
Who knows what you might uncover.
You never know.
Along the way.
And that's a wrap on this deep dive into the world of ancient texts and biblical scholarship.
We hope you enjoyed the journey.